Hey, what's going on, Ramley? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports. This is your daily dose of Los Angeles Rams news. Full bore into camp season. I guess technically camp season is almost done in terms of Rams practicing at LMU. Only 2 days left, today and tomorrow. But technically training camp is going on for another 3 or so weeks as the preseason is just kicking off. Myself or Skinny T has been at Rams camp every single day, taking in the sights and sounds. Been a busy few weeks, but a ton of fun. We haven't been on here as much as we hope. Put up a lot of articles and put up other videos, but between the travel, the driving, and then I've also been at USC camp a bunch. You've been at Chargers camp, son. It's just been a whirlwind. So finally getting on here to kind of recap what we've seen and what we're looking for moving into the weekend and into next week. But first and foremost, Skinny T, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic, man. We've got so much going on that unfortunately we haven't had time for this. It's just unfortunate because we've wanted to record. We've tried to.
Yeah.
It's just fallen through. So we apologize. And we're gonna get back to a much more normal schedule now that we're back in football season. We had Chargers Lions on TV.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame game. It's back.
Yeah, football is back, baby. But yeah, it's been so fun being out there, but it's like there's no place to like record because it's just like the media workroom, and then there's no other like rooms, so you'd have to be like in a hallway. So then it's like, all right, we'll wait till we get home, and then after dealing with traffic from LMU going through the teeth of LA, it's like, oh, that's 2 hours later getting home, and so yeah, it's been wild, but it's been fun. It's been fun. I was at USC fall camp yesterday. You can tell by my Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer here, got a little sunburn, got nice and toasty out there yesterday morning. And then, it was at Rams camp before that. You'll be at Rams camp today, which is Saturday, and tomorrow, which is Sunday. So make sure to get that SPF on. But yeah, let's run through it, man. So I think it's been a fun camp. My first time at LMU, I didn't get to make it last year. You were there last year. But kind of a cool little setup they got there. Not as massive as it was in Irvine, a little more intimate, which is great. But let's just talk. Let's start with injuries, I guess, right? So we've talked a lot on Stafford. We'll be very brief on that, and then we'll move on. But I'll just toss to you first. Still week to week. I think the more I kind of thought about that, we talked a lot about, hey, the back, the spine specialist, is there cause for concern? I think the more I thought about it, I'm still like leery about it. But I feel like McVay changed it to week, so he just doesn't have to get questions every single day. I think it was more like okay, it's week to week, so every Monday you can ask me. And other than that, like I don't want to hear your questions because it's week to week. Just your thoughts, quick thoughts on Stafford. Any update there?
Yeah, hardly any update. I mean, basically, that's where he left it. It's week to week. We talked about spine specialists being used by the team to talk about it. So, what does that rule in? What does that rule out? It does have to do with the spine. So it's not just a muscle ache. It's not just a soreness in the muscles. It has to do with the spine itself, the skeletal structure of it all. So that's, that puts it into a more concerning context. And, I'm looking at the August 5th, I believe it is, scrimmage and joint practice with the Cowboys. What's his involvement with that? That's kind of when McVay kind of pulls out all the stops, lets starters play, lets people hit and really truly compete. And that's the only time that anybody gets any idea of who the starters are going to be, what the offense is going to look like. Is he going to be involved in those two practices at all? The Cowboys and then later on the Chargers ahead of the preseason games. So, again, we're just going to have to kick the can down the road and see where and how exactly this is all shaking out. They're always going to say all the positive things on their side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, of course.
That's kind of where it's left.
Yeah. Sweeping the rug. I will say this, it's in line. We'll kind of be jumping all over the place, but McVay has obviously raved about Jimmy Garoppolo and calling him like, oh, he's a starter. We get to have him as a backup. And, I think we all know we all love Sean McVay, but we all know he kind of, he's going to pump his guys up, which is fair, as he should. I think Jimmy overall has had a decent camp, but I will say when I was there on, I believe it was Thursday, which would have been the last practice they had, not a good day for Jimmy G overall. A couple of interceptions. off. His timing was off. Accuracy was off. One practice, not put a ton of stock in it. But as you and I have both said, like, if you're actually having to go into this thing rolling with Jimmy G, like, I'm not saying it's going to be a 2-win season, but I don't think that's a Super Bowl winning team with him under center. And I'm not going to take one practice to say that, but the body of work has kind of speaks for itself. I do think he can be serviceable. I do think if they need to have him a couple games, they can win some games. But if for whatever reason this thing does linger, which I hope it does not. But if it's like, okay, yeah, it's Jimmy G's team now moving forward, like, not feeling great about the prospects of where this season can go.
Yeah, 100%. And there's been other throws. I'm paying attention to the ones that go outside the numbers and deep down the field, and he just hasn't been on target on those. And that's the world you live in with Jimmy Garoppolo. Go find some not safe for work statements by Davante Adams when they played on the Raiders. Now I get that was in a different situation with the Raiders. Davante was very unhappy, but he let some expletives fly in the receivers show about problems that have plagued Jimmy Garoppolo throughout his entire career, holding on to the ball too long, making bad decisions. Last year I saw him throw a interception to a defensive lineman. That's not great. We saw him overthrow Tutu Atwell. Now it wasn't massively overthrown, but it wasn't on target, and that's the world you live in with a 37-year-old quarterback and the world you live in with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. You want Stafford back. He's the best team's chance. Now he's not. I don't think he's going to be out the entire season. I don't think anybody's thinking that.
Yeah.
But getting off to a fast start, they don't have an easy schedule right off the jump, and all sorts of factors go into that. Installing new offensive schemes, more 12 personnel, different running backs involved. It's all in there.
Yeah. I can't remember if we brought this up earlier in the off season, but I still am honestly, I don't want to say like upset or angry, but I'm definitely still a little bit perplexed why the Rams did not try to sign Trey Lance. And I know he hasn't had the season so far, or the career so far, and now is on his third team after drafted by the Niners, traded to the Cowboys, and now signed with the Chargers. And we've been at Chargers camp a few times, and obviously I'm sure a lot of people saw the Hall of Fame game yesterday, whatever that was, Thursday. And again, you can't take a lot of stock in a preseason game going up against a bunch of backups, but I think the ceiling of what he could be was worth the signing. Not even saying he would have beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, but here we are. We talk consistently about how this team does not have a future plan at quarterback. We have the 2 first-round picks. You're going to draft a guy. Trey Lance is almost 3 years younger than Stetson Bennett. I mean, he's still only 25 years old. You could have got him for unbelievably cheap as a free agent. Like, why not bring him in to at least compete in that room? Like, you could have got him probably for almost the same price as what they're paying Dresser Wynn to be the 4th QB arm. And here's a guy that would have pushed and competed. And hey, what if he ends up fitting in the system and doing well? I'm not saying he's going to be the guy, but you have a former 3rd overall pick, 25-year-old that you're like, you had a full season to work with, that going the next year, you're not as strong potentially. Now, again, he could crash out. He could, who knows? But I mean, it looks like he's winning the backup job with the Chargers, beating out, the rest of their QB room. So that's just another one that's perplexing, that they just felt really good about Jimmy G on a 1-year deal and Stetson Bennett, who's, his contract's only 2 years left, and kind of going into this offseason blind. Obviously, I don't think they knew Stafford's back would be an issue in the training camp, but I don't know. I just perplexing to me when you have a potential ceiling of a guy that, hasn't done anything, but the age and the draft pedigree is worth a shot, in my opinion.
Yeah. The impression I get from everything that McVay has said about Garoppolo, gives indications about how he views quarterbacks in general. And I just don't think he wants the headache and the hand-holding that is involved with a guy like Trey Lance, who didn't play a lot of football in college or in the NFL so far. So how do you get that guy up to that level? And I don't think Sean McVay wants to be in that world, which brings up major questions about drafting a guy. There's going to be some hand holding. There's going to be some transition. There always is. So We've been talking about the quarterback situation, no plan in place. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the future of the franchise. Maybe a bridge, but I don't love that bridge. It's a rickety bridge that I don't want to walk across.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. If any year you're going to hold some hands, this was the year to hold some hands because he
I
could
totally
learn
agree.
from Stafford. Like,
I totally agree.
and with Stafford being out, he'd be getting a lot of reps, and Stafford would still be there to be in the film room and helping, kind of being that second arm of the coaching staff. So, anyway, we'll see. I mean, Trey Lance obviously is never going to start with the Chargers with Justin Herbert there, but maybe we'll see a midseason trade try to go get him and bring him into the room. But anyway, let's move on from quarterback. A couple other injury updates. Nothing concerning, unless I'm missing something. I don't think anyone's had any real serious injuries. But McVay did update on Emmanuel Forbes and Cameron Curl. I'll let you drop that update there. And do you have any concern, or just normal camp bumps and bruises?
Yeah, Cam Curl had his ankle stepped on. That one's probably the most concerning.
Yeah, you were there when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean McVay called that one week to week as well. So that one I would keep my eye on. The other one is a soft tissue injury to Emmanuel Forbes. Well, the only thing I can say about this one is that the secondary is probably the weakest unit on the team, depending on who you ask. There's a few people out there really pumping up the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of them. This is a safety and a potential starting cornerback for the team. So just something to keep an eye on. And, you want the safety room is actually quite interestingly deep. So that's one I'm less worried about. But how does that affect Quentin Lake's ability to move around the field? And that's what this team loves and relies on heavily. So not terribly concerned. So the soft tissue injury, the hamstring injury to Forbes is, he said, about a week. Probably next week he'll be back. So all good news.
Yeah.
Not all bad news, I guess I should say.
Yeah, not all bad news. I think, that always gives opportunity for some of the younger guys to get some reps. Some of these walk-on players, and the rotation is different. You see Jalen McCullough out there a little more with the ones at safety, and some different scenarios at cornerback as well. With Forbes, has kind of been slotted as one of those fringe starters. Obviously, Akella Witherspoon and Darius Williams are your two outside guys, with Quentin Lake kind of playing the star or nickel. But Forbes is a guy that they are seemingly want to rotate in fairly consistently. So, getting him back.
They need that depth with Akella Witherspoon
Yeah.
and Darius Williams. You got 32 years old, Darius Williams, and often injured, already been injured, had a sort of a calf strain already in camp for Akella Witherspoon. So they need some depth there.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a long season. But at least nothing concerning with that. So, all right, well, let's talk some camp standouts so far, shall we? I'll let you start. Who do you want to start with camp standouts? And then we'll end the show. We'll wrap up here in like 25, 30 minutes or so with some kind of rookie updates. So we'll keep the rookies not in this conversation, but who are some camp standouts for you? Or one, and we'll go back and forth.
I'm going to go with Puka Nacua. That's who I'm going to start with. Just praise across the board from everybody. Probably the most effusive praise come from a defensive lineman next to him, Kobe Turner. Playing with a buoyancy and a lightness about him, and then at the podium as well. Just so excited about somebody that's dedicated to run defense on this team. And Puka Nacua is that. This team was in the 20s in EPA per play, in the 20s in success rate, allowing just a lot of explosive plays and just good consistent chunk gains as well that really plagued them and beat them in the playoffs. Go back to those two Saquon Barkley games. That it was everybody knew you could run on this team, and they were the ones that just kept at it and had great success. And obviously Saquon Barkley is who he is, but this guy, Puka Nacua, being in there, being able to stop the run, just raises the level of this defense. And not only that, it allows them to rotate Kobe Turner off the field. He's been on the field a ton as a rookie and as a second year. And so he's going to be able to get some breathers. He admitted that, that did affect his play in his first 2 years, just being gassed sometimes on third downs. And those are money downs. Those are passing downs that you need to be, your ears pinned back, getting to the quarterback.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, all his teammates are heaping praise. And I think, not to bring up old players, but I think you can see what Bobby Brown was kind of lacking in this situation, and not trying to take a shot, but obviously the Rams wanted him to be that run first or that run stuffing first mentality, and he was quoted many times, even to us personally at LAFB, that he thought he had talents in other areas. He wanted to be put in other situations for this. And Puka Nacua is just absolutely embracing, like, I am here to plug holes. I am here to stop the run and fix what this running game could not do last year, which is why this team did not make the Super Bowl, essentially. Because if they could have, I mean, that last run of Saquon is what, obviously sealed it. And if they could have just had any semblance of a run defense in that game, they would have gone obviously then to the NFC Championship, and it would have had to beat Washington and then go to the Super Bowl. But Puka Nacua is just embracing that, which I think is the teammates are loving, because everyone's going to support their teammates, but like everyone knows they have a specific role, right? Like there's some guys on every team that are like the jack of all trades, do everything. I kind of think of Quentin Lake with that. They're moving him all over the back end. But some guys know, like, okay, this is my role. Like, and I just need to embrace it and do my job. And Puka Nacua is absolutely doing that. His teammates recognize it. The coaches recognize it. And yeah, everyone just, I mean, we said it, I think, when they signed him, this might be one of the most underrated signings of the offseason. And if 2 weeks of training camp are an indication, it's certainly living up to that bill for sure. All right. So I'll give mine another free agent signing, somewhat underrated free agent signing that now seems to be really good in training camp, at least. And that's linebacker Nate Landman, the Zimbabwean from the University of Colorado, played at Atlanta last year. And training camp is hard because there's no real tackling. It's all thud or two-hand touch, essentially. So it's hard to really tell. The linebacker position specifically might be the hardest. But if intensity, if volume, if respect from teammates is an indication, Nate Landman's having a fantastic camp so far. I mean, he definitely has that leader mentality, has kind of you can always tell, Skinny, like certain guys just people like gravitate to. And it seemed like Omar Speights, I think, is having a good camp, but it feels like already Nate Landman's like the guy in that room, like the guy that everyone respects when they're doing like one-on-one blocking drills with the running backs. Like he is like the head honcho, it seems like, of like the running backs. If you can stop him, like you've done a good job. And so I think he's at a fantastic camp and has done, different things within the run game and a different, I think I don't think his specialty is in coverage, but he has shown some better stuff than the Rams have had in the past at that position. So we'll see if it translates to actually gameplay. That's what's so hard about Rams camp specifically, is it's even less, it's more tactical, I should say, than others. But so far, Nate Landman's definitely one of my standouts.
Yeah, similar to Puka Nacua, everybody who's been asked about him has been raving about him. All the beat reporters are also, noticing that he's making some standout plays. I've noticed that as well when I've been out there. I have big question marks though. I wonder if it's being graded on a curve. Is it just that he's so much better than the linebackers they previously had, specifically last year? If he's just so much better than that. Quentin Lake, said he's always going after the ball. He's always trying to dislodge that. That's a great sign. Those are explosive defensive plays, the turnovers specifically. If you can force fumbles, that's great. But kind of what you're pointing to, this is just training camp. There's been 2 or 3 padded practices so far. You can only learn so much. And now you see guys when they're in the right spot versus when they're in the wrong spot. So that's all good. But the guy lost his job in Atlanta. They didn't re-sign him. He kind of filled in there. And maybe it's just getting up to speed with football. Like you said, he's a Zimbabwean. Not a ton of quality coaches over there, I wouldn't imagine, in youth football, even if maybe he didn't even play youth football. So I have my question marks about it. And again, I'm going to point toward the joint practices to see exactly how that all shakes out. But if it's an improvement, that's great news.
Yeah.
So I think, I always think about it. People calling for McVay's head, get rid of Stafford, things like that. It's like, who else are you going to get in there? What other running back or what other linebackers are out there?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I'm still on the fence. I'm not gonna post it up on either side. But I will give you guys this big clue. He was wearing a helmet when nobody else was wearing a helmet on defense, so we know what that means. He's taking the green dot. I don't know. I posed that as a clue. I was going to tell you anyway. He's wearing the green dot, which allows Quentin Lake take some stuff off of his plate. So they're putting a lot of trust in him. That's for sure. Give him a
Yeah.
lot of praise, pumping him up.
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah.
Obviously, we will not see him in the preseason until week 1. So, but great camp so far. Anyone on offense you want to highlight? It's kind of, yeah. I'll start. I think Jordan Whittington has had a good camp so far. Um, if I'm being honest, at least the camps I've been to, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like as of now, he's kind of taken over that wide receiver 3 spot from Tutu Atwell. I don't think Tutu's had a great camp, a couple drops here and there, and it just hasn't like stood out at all. Where I think Whittington seems to be almost more trusted, especially in goal line situations. And he just gives you a little bit more versatility, and Tutu just still, for whatever reason, hasn't been able to kind of be that weapon that everyone wants him to be, and whether it's play calling or what, but even when they do get him open down the sideline, he hasn't been able to haul some passes in on some of those deep ones. So I think Whittington, in my opinion, has really become that wide receiver 3. What's your thoughts on Whittington?
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's moving from that. He's been in kind of a swing, sometimes with a second unit, sometimes with the first unit, and just more and more with the first team. And part of the thing when they're running 11 personnel, McVay does not like to sub out his receivers. He likes to keep that illusion of complexity. He likes everything to look the same. So that there are no tells.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you have a guy that's 155 to 165 pounds on the field, it becomes a bit of a tell. Are they going to run, running plays with Tutu Atwell on the field when they can use Jordan Whittington on an escort motion like they did with Cooper Kupp and with Puka Nacua? That's a tell. That becomes a tell.
Yep.
So when Tutu's on the field, you just kind of cap him. You try to take him away that way, take his speed away, which is his great success. And Whittington's just much more versatile. McVay commented specifically on his increase in the route tree and his ability to be used in the running game, and that's just disqualifying, which is more and more. Tutu's on a 1-year contract. Davante Adams is on a one-year contract. Whittington still's got 2 on his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's kind of a mathematics that you can look to and go, the writing's kind of on the wall. So it might be a $10 million mistake.
Looking like it right now. We'll see. Hopefully we'll see him more involved. But all right, quick offensive line update before we move on to rookies. Just for those curious, Alaric Jackson has been in pads throughout practice, has done some individual work. Sean McVay talked about on Thursday how he's thrilled that he's been able to at least be out there, and he wants to do as much as he can. But obviously has been limited to just individual stuff here and there. And so no team activity really. And DJ Humphries taking the bulk of those left tackle reps, with David Questenberry subbing in here and there. So I think that's the only real offensive line update. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, just I'll reiterate that, with the blood clotting issue, the problem is if you take a big hit, internal bleeding becomes a big problem if you can't, because he's on blood thinners to get rid of the blood clots. That becomes a problem, and that's what they're monitoring. So he hasn't been in contact, essentially, is where they are. And that's football. I mean,
yeah,
you're hitting a lot in football. So
a lot, especially in the trenches, every play.
Yeah, exactly. So, keep that in mind going through these joint practices. I doubt he's going to compete in those. I doubt he's not going to be in the preseason games. So, this is going to be a week 1 kind of revelation decision that they're going to have to make.
Yeah, I know. Not ideal. Still now 2 weeks in the camp with your quarterback and your left tackle. Big question marks.
And we have seen them make mistakes along the offensive line, kind of kicking the can down the road last year with Jonah Jackson and in years past with Logan Bruss. So it's, this team, the hope is high, and
Yeah.
sometimes it needs to be brought down to reality and just get a guy in there. And DJ Humphries can do it.
Yeah.
He's been a competent starting tackle in the league.
Yeah, exactly. So they got lucky that he was still out there available when they did sign him not too long ago. So, all right, let's talk rookies. Let's start with our guy Turd Ferguson, T Ferg. Um, he's a rookie, right? So some rookies, especially we've talked about it before, the tight end position is one of the hardest positions to transition from college to pro. It's probably the hardest outside of quarterback. Just because there's so much on your plate, so many different things, especially in this Sean McVay offense. And now they're running more 12 personnel. That's going to add some different nuances to the position. I don't think he's had a bad camp by any means, so I don't want anyone to mishear me there. As of now, I do think he is kind of further down the depth chart than many thought. I think there was once he was drafted, everyone's like, oh, it's the Higbee Ferguson show. And everyone kind of forgot about Colby Parkinson and Davis Allen and some of these other guys that are going to be competing for reps. And so far, those three I just mentioned with Tyler Higbee, have gotten more run than Terrence Ferguson. So whether that's just catching up to the playbook, getting more involved, or not, that doesn't mean I don't think he's not going to be involved this season or whatnot. But just, through 2 weeks, that's been my summation is, he's a little bit more behind than maybe some of the other rookies in terms of breaking through that ceiling of being that kind of true tight end one. What's your thoughts on Ferguson so far?
Yeah, the majority of his first team reps have come on when Higbee was out, when he was on a veteran rest day. And I think, in those 12 personnel sets, we're going to see Colby Parkinson on the field more than Higbee and Ferguson. I mean, I think you're going to sub in Ferguson for Higbee, just because Colby Parkinson is the blocking tight end. He's more the inline tight end. So when Ferguson does get to see the field, it's going to be, slot split out, maybe wide sets for him, because he's an athletic pass catcher, and that's his greatest skill set so far, developing as a blocker for sure. But those are, with going again back to Stafford, you got to take care of your 37-year-old quarterback.
Yep.
That's got to be job one. So it's similar to what I was saying last year about Blake Corum. It's like, he can't be on the field because he's not good in pass pro. So until he breaks through on that, I mean, he might be on the field for the preseason games. So
yeah,
constantly pointing back as at a barometer as to who and where people are in their development and where they are in the depth chart.
Well, and I think that's a great transition, because that is priority number one, keeping Stafford upright and healthy. And a lot of that is reliant on the running back. And, you talked a bunch about how Kyren Williams, why he was on the field so much, from his running and catching ability, but also just his pass blocking ability. And Blake Corum did not meet that mark last year, which is why it was so hard to get him on the field. So far through camp, and I'll kind of pose this in two ways. From what I've seen, Blake Corum still struggling in pass protection, at least on one-on-one reps. They do this drill with running back versus linebacker. They kind of set up some trash cans and pick a hole, and then, you go one-on-one. Corum clearly still struggling in that. And fourth-round rookie Jarquez Hunter might be the best pass blocker of the running back bunch, including Kyren Williams. I mean, he has been fantastic in those one-on-one drills. So for me right now, Jarquez Hunter has leapfrogged Blake Corum. There's been a lot of, it's so funny to me, and this is what I love about this business, is you see some of the other beat writers and their stories, and they've really highlighted Blake Corum looks more explosive and his speed between the tackles and this, not, which he has. I'm not taking anything away from that. But that's really not what's going to get him on the field. Like, it really comes down to how he is in pass pro, because they drafted Jarquez Hunter for the explosion anyway. That was one of his big assets. But if he can also surpass him in pass blocking, he's going to surpass him on the depth chart. And that doesn't mean Blake Corum won't play. That doesn't mean Blake Corum hasn't had a good camp. That doesn't mean he hasn't progressed in his maturation process. But from what I've seen, Skinny, I mean, to me, maybe the biggest standout of camp has been Jarquez Hunter and what he's been able to do, and his work ethic and the love for the coaching staff. Michael Flores talked about how he just always wants the ball in his hands. And he almost seems like angry if he doesn't, and he loves that mentality. So, I mean, this guy, I think, has been killing it, and this guy is the future of the running back room. And to me, he is already RB2 behind Kyren Williams. What's your thoughts?
I 100% agree. That was my impression as well. Going back to some of those quotes, McVay said, "It seems like this guy's staring a hole through me sometimes." And McVay is one of the more intense people you'll ever come across,
Yeah.
and he's kind of getting stared down by this rookie running back, which is just fun and hilarious. And go back to what LaFleur was saying. He's like, he puts himself in a lot of uncomfortable positions, and he likes that life. That's the direct quote. He likes that life. So he's intimidating people. He's a dog, in that drill. He was putting his body in there, just putting his face in there, not worrying about it. Going up against Omar Spates, going up against Landman. He put on a show. So really excited, really, really excited about what Jarquez Hunter just brings in terms of his mentality, just being a dog. Like, I think this offense needs more and more of that. And for as much as Kyren Williams are those things like limited with the size, same thing with Quorum as well.
Yeah, there was a moment on Thursday's practice. I can't remember if it was against Spates or Troy Reeder, but Blake Corum in that one-on-one drill got beat bad. And he was getting kind of beat bad all day on this drill, unfortunately. Got beat bad, and then there was another running back. I can't remember if it was Ronnie Rivers or someone was up next and was set to go against Nate Landman, and the coach swapped him out, said, "No, Jarquez Hunter, come basically show him how it's done. Like, show him how to do it right." And he locked him up, and he made it look effortless almost. So that, and we're just going to keep hammering this down. That is what's going to get running backs on the field. Like, explosion, yes, you need that. Obviously, hold on to the football, don't fumble. You need that. But how you are in pass blocking is extremely emphasized in this offense, and it's what's going to separate you from the pack. And so unless something changes drastically, I think Jarquez Hunter is playing himself into a big role in this team. And I hope Blake Corum can as well, because he does have some of that explosion. He can run good between the tackles. That's why they draft him out of Michigan. So I'm not saying he's like dead in the water, but what we saw last year, the lack of snaps, as of now, I don't know if we're going to see a huge change of that, at least early on.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted him because he was so similar to Blake Corum. And at this point, that doesn't matter because you got another guy back there.
Yeah. Yep. So, well, unless you got anything else to add, I think we'll wrap up because you're going to be heading to camp here fairly soon for another day.
Yeah. Anything else to add? Stuff together.
Great. Sorry. So nothing else to add. Great. Well, we will wrap that up. Little Rams camp update. We'll have plenty more. Obviously 2 more days left at LMU, and then the team heads back to their facility in Woodland Hills. So keep it right here with the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. That's Skinny T. I'm Ryan Dowd. Thank you, Ramley, as always. We'll have plenty more Rams content up on LAFBnetwork.com and plenty more videos aside from even shows. We're doing, sights and sounds and stuff like that up on the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you as always. Be well, be safe. We'll be back with plenty more Rams talk here on the Rams Skinny.